I would say I'm worried about it.
Financially, I'm scared.
I think that our country is really drunk on debt.
The first was 9/11, which was not great for the economy. Second thing are the wars that resulted. Around the same time was give really, really big tax cuts. They were weighted very heavily also towards people of upper incomes. And then finally, towards the end of that period, we had the financial crisis. The government spent a lot of money bailing out Wall Street investment firms that they were afraid might crash the economy if they went totally down.
The decision that was made by Wall Street had a devastating consequence to the American economy. People lost savings, homes, and accumulated large amount of debt. I had the privilege to speak to a seasoned realtor who had over 2 decades worth of experience. He broke down the housing crisis and why it happened.
We're talking unscrupulous mortgage lenders who sold exploding interest loans all over the west and south side when people didn't know what trouble they were getting themselves into. All these investment companies got in trouble because of these investments, but not the bank who had given out the free money. They sold the loan. They had nothing more to do with it. But many, many people, if you offer them free money, they say yes. And it's not their fault, it just is how it happens.
My goal in life was not to have a lot of debt when I was younger. As my children began to age, and again, as easy money began to come from home equity loans, you know, I used home equity loans to pay off my van, and I used home equity loans to fix up my 105-year-old house. Now I'm uncomfortable with the amount of debt I have on the home equity loan, and my house is worth less than it was at the time that they gave me the home equity loan. The interesting part about the home equity loan is they did it in about 15 minutes with no paperwork. I told them what I thought my house was worth, and they gave me money just like that. You know, so they didn't do a verification, they didn't do an appraisal. They just said, you know, what do you think it's worth? I said this. They said, okay, you know, and gave me money like that. So it was amazing, and banks all around the country were doing a similar thing.
When my wife and I bought our home in 2002, we thought we could afford the mortgage payment. I was shocked to learn the bank was willing to let us buy twice as much home as what we bought. Well, boy, would we have trouble having kept that home if we had bought twice as much as we did buy. In 2000, the federal government changed the rules to allow for what was called a stated income loan. And people no longer had to document their income. They could pay a slightly higher interest rate and simply state their income. And all over this west side and on the south side, those unscrupulous mortgage lenders were approaching families who had 20, 30, 40 years of equity in a property saying, you can have free money. And they were subprime loans. They were going to have exploding interest rates. People didn't know what they were doing, but people perhaps should have investigated. But when free money's being offered, lots of people take it. And it was all based on the presumption, Tim, that housing values would always go up. Once they flattened, well, then this thing was a house of cards. It had to fall.
Mr. Byron talks a lot about free money. I'm guessing sometimes it can be a bad thing. All over Chicago, foreclosure and short sales was happening. Mr. Byron allowed me to talk to him again about a specific family that went through foreclosure and short sales.
This seller had tried in 2006 to sell the property at $570,000, and for 1 year it didn't sell. And because the mortgage payment was going to have an exploding interest rate, it was going to become a sky-high one. The very last mortgage they ever took out had an introductory teaser rate of an awful 8.62%, but the day they missed the first payment, which was 1 month later, it exploded to 12%. Now their mortgage payment was over $5,000 a month, and these 2 apartments were not bringing in $2,400 a month in rent.
Wow, there are empty houses around me.
2012 will set a new record for foreclosures.
We're talking about the subprime mortgage crisis. It's forcing many Americans out there out of house and home.
Home foreclosures continue to skyrocket.
The total number of foreclosed bank-owned homes is 816,302 nationwide.
In my neighborhood, many people went through foreclosures. Now I wonder why people was forced out of their homes. Sometimes you can't trust anybody but yourself, because people and banks will say anything to you just to get your money.
They knew this family was going to be forced to move, but they bet a lot of money that they would be able to sell this property for higher than the highest mortgage they had ever given.
Okay.
And at that point, their goose was cooked. Now the subprime loans were going to explode. Now the payment was going to go through the roof. Now they didn't know it. It was only a matter of time, be forced out of the property.
You know, there are hundreds of foreclosed homes that are boarded up. And, you know, what that tends to do is people feel less safe. You know, those homes become places where squatters live, where drug transactions begin to take place. People go inside and burglarize those homes, and it just breeds a very negative economic environment.
Wall Street has taken over the financing of our properties, and most loans were not FHA, they were Wall Street loans.
All over the country, people stopped paying loans, which turned neighborhoods into ghost towns. I started wondering why America would get into debt. It seemed to cause a lot of problems. But after further research, I learned debt isn't always bad.
I think America will always have some debt. Some debt is necessary. I don't think debt that you cannot manage and handle is a problem for the country and for individuals.
We wanted to end our debt, then we would need politicians that were running on a program and saying, I'm going to raise your taxes and I'm going to cut back the programs for you. And that's not a very attractive message. It's, you have to have somebody that's able to inspire people in a way that they're willing to make sacrifices, and that's really, really difficult.
I think that people should start focusing more on politics. Because if you focus more on politics, you'll really know what's going on and really know where your money's being spent. So if you really concerned about economics, you should really consult with your local politicians, state politicians, and federal politicians, because they are really in control of your lives and how your lives are being affected.
Raise taxes on the wealthiest people, especially for things that are non-productive or non-work related. Somehow bring healthcare costs down, and probably mildly cut defense spending. And that would be at least a good start towards getting back on track.
In this documentary, I focus on foreclosure because it's what I see every day. When I walk to school, when I take the bus, it's in my neighborhood. Addressing the housing crisis is crucial to us getting out of our downward spiral of debt.